everybody, hopefully an interesting video today. I'll just point out before we start, this is what I'm riding, which is the Super Soco TC Max. I have this on loan for a review because I review bikes. I just have a feeling this video might get watched by a lot more people than normally watch my channel. This isn't my daily runner, this is a bike I'm reviewing. So in today's video, what I want to talk about is basically my philosophy on what makes a bike good or great. And also to kind of talk about picking your first bike, because a lot of people ask me, I'm looking to get my first bike, and this can be, 125 level, A1, A2, A full A, whatever. They're always like, what do you think about this as a first bike? And with 125s, I'm always asked, do you think this is a good bike for a learner? Any 125 is a good bike for a learner. That's specifically what they're designed for. Sure, some might not fit you so well, but we'll get on to that. Well, it was boring down there. Let's go back this way. So I want to talk about my philosophy on what I think makes a bike great. Now, obviously, there is a few criteria that the bike has to fit first, which is it needs to be reliable, it needs to be relatively well made, it needs to do its job. That's kind of a given. Beyond that, there's a lot of different styles and types of motorcycles out there, and I don't think any of them, really, bar a few, are bad motorcycles. Pros and cons, you have to weigh up costs against reliability and things like that. Do realise that for a lot of bikes you are paying for a brand name on it, opposed to extra build quality or anything like that. There are truths in all of the stereotypes, but as I've said over the years, Chinese bikes, for instance, aren't nearly as bad as they used to be, and they're now a pretty viable option. And electrics are becoming viable options as well. It's not going to replace a normal petrol 125 at this point, but in the future maybe. This is my point. Like, this bike, it isn't the best bike in the world because, it only does about 40 to 60 miles. It's electric, so it's not the fastest in the world. And because it's new technology, it's a bit more expensive than a 125 petrol equivalent at the moment. So on paper, this might not seem like such a good idea. However, when you get your butt on one for a while, I love big bikes, okay? My standard bikes, if you're new here, my two that I run is a DRZ 400 SM, which is actually a 440, which I've done a full rebuild on recently, like down to the frame, strip the paint, a whole lot. If you want to check that out, look at the playlist on my channel. And the other one is a Yamaha Xj6 Diversion 600cc from 2010. And they suit all my needs. And I've ridden an awful lot of very large motorcycles, very expensive motorcycles, cheap motorcycles. I've ridden a lot of bikes. And yet still, with all the things that I said about this bike on paper not being that great, I love it because the few niches that it hits in my uses, it's not my bike, I've only got it for a couple of weeks to be fair, and I wouldn't have this as my only bike, but if it was a secondary bike for around the island and places, local trips, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, look, this is a good example. We have a hybrid in front of us here and they're doing less than 2 miles an hour. I can go way faster than this. So even in this bike, I can find things that I absolutely love about it. And I will miss this little thing. Okay, maybe I preferred the Zero because it had so much more power and a little bit more range, but then I wasn't paying for it on either of these ones. They're review bikes. And if I had to buy one, well, 2 and a bit times the cost for the Zero is slightly hard to take. But, as again, it's a new technology. I'm only using electrics as an example because I think it's actually quite relevant to show how for some people these can work and they can be fantastic, and for other people they're the worst thing ever. And that's kind of my point. I don't think that there's any particularly bad bikes out there, and the truth is what makes a great bike great is the fact that you think it's great. Like your first bike, it doesn't matter if you get the newest, shiniest Yamaha R125, 5 grand's worth, 90 miles an hour maybe, it doesn't matter if you get that, or you have a beaten up CG or a Sinus Apache or something. It doesn't matter. You are going to love your first bike and you're going to forgive it for all of its flaws. And that leads me on to the whole thing about what makes a bike great. I honestly think what makes a bike great is the stuff that's wrong with it. Now, listen to me, okay? Hear me out. I've ridden a lot of bikes, and I've ridden some absolutely fantastically capable machines from like BMW, for instance. But these machines work so well, they do their jobs so clinically, that in ways they have no character, because they don't really have anything that's wrong, and the things that aren't quite right tend to be a bit annoying, if you know what I mean. However, you look at something like my DRZ 400 SM. It's not the lightest supermoto out there. It's definitely not the most powerful out there. It doesn't like going on motorways. Everything in the world has ever gone wrong with it has gone wrong with it, and I've had to fix it. It's a 20-year-old design that has not been updated since the day it was invented, pretty much, other than some bold new graphics. You know, there's a lot of things to say that bike shouldn't be that great. And if you just came into it and needed a bike to get from A to B, and you needed to go on motorways and stuff, your opinion, that bike would be pretty bad. You'd say, all right, yeah, it's all right on the little lanes and stuff, but my God, this thing's rubbish on the motorway. Yes it is. And it's for that reason that I love it, because it isn't made to do everything. It's made to do a few things well. In a way, it's like universal adapters. If you get a universal one, sure, it's going to meet most people's needs, but it'll never meet any of them as well as if you buy the adapter specifically made for your thing. That could be anything I'm talking about. I'm being metaphorical, but you understand what I'm saying. So when you have a bike that's capable of doing everything, I think inherently they tend to be a bit soulless. And, I mean, absolutely fantastic on paper. You know, if you need a bike to do a job, it does the job. But if you're looking for something with a bit of, you know, passion inspiring, a bit of character, I think that comes in bikes with flaws. I totally get why it sounds stupid to say that the best things about a motorcycle are the things that are wrong with it. But in my experience, it's those things that make me end up loving them. My Xj6 is another great example. Xj6 Diversion. You know, it's not the fastest bike out there by any means, but it's fast enough. It's not the prettiest bike out there, but I don't think it's that bad looking. Certainly now I've done a load of work to mine, I think it's better looking than stock. But that mainly comes down to the fact that I really like to customise my bikes so they are mine. Doesn't have to be huge things, but as long as I can tell that's my bike over another one parked next to it, then I'm happy. But what the bike isn't good at is trying to go fast in country roads like it is a sports bike. It is a sports tourer. So, when you try and do this, it's not great. But over time, you get to learn to be better at it. And you get more affinity with the machine, and you start to, you know, it takes more skill to make the thing go fast. And for that reason, it's more rewarding. So some of the best times I've had on that bike is going through some country roads and just nailing it. Getting that bike to do something that it's not really designed to do and it's not really that great at, but still have massive fun at the same time. The challenge is the enjoyment. Does that make more sense to you than what I was trying to say before? God damn it, I've still not changed the mirror on this thing. Super Soco, I'm so sorry. You sent me that 2 days ago now, and I still haven't stuck it on it because I've been too busy enjoying riding the bike. There are other aspects to it as well, that you get to know a vehicle with problems. That's part of its character too, you know. My old 125 had a few problems. My Betty, my Pulse Adrenaline, it had a few problems along the way. And some of them I never really bothered fixing because you didn't need to fix them. You knew you could wiggle this or jiggle that or do it in this certain way or do it in that certain way, and it would work perfectly. And if anyone else got on the bike and tried to ride it, they go, it's broken. And you're like, no, it's not. You just do this and there's this. Like, same with some people not being able to start a kick-started bike. Some bikes, there's a very certain way they want it done. And it's if you have the knack, you have the knack. That, again, is affinity with the machine. If it never went wrong and you just pressed the button and it did it every time, it wouldn't be the same. So I still stand by my point, which is the things that are wrong with a bike are the things that make it good. But I can understand where we have to draw the line at reliability. You want the thing to be safe, you want the thing to last, you want the thing to be, you know, reasonable value for money. Well, maybe not actually. You know, your budget is completely dependent on you. That's another thing where people apply their own budget to other people's options. I'm sorry, there will always be someone out there who's far, far richer than you and can definitely afford that thing that you can't. I can understand that you may be annoyed it's so expensive or don't understand the value of the thing, but that doesn't change the fact that it exists and that's the price, and whether you like that or not is not going to change a single thing. They're still going to exist and they're still going to get bought. Unless it's asking too much or they don't hit that that niche, that good thing that makes that price worth it for that person. But then again, as I say, depending on people's wealth, 20 quid is something to one person, is a lot more to another, and nothing to another. You know, it's down to you. It's all relevant. Anyway, so there is my philosophy of motorcycles. I'm afraid the truth is, what makes a bike great is unique to you over time, beyond functionality. You know, if you want to know how fast it goes, or you really don't care, do you, mate? If you don't care, oh my god, the seagull's completely thrown me. If the paper numbers, you know, suit your needs, then it's fine. And let's face it, most bikes do 70 miles an hour, and that's all we technically need on the highway. We don't need any more than that, so most 125s are absolutely fine for you, right? No, obviously, there's people out there that want thousands. People like me, I don't see the point in having 1,000 on the UK road because you just can't use the engine. But it doesn't mean I don't think they should exist. It doesn't mean that I have a problem with other people who have them. I totally get it. I've ridden them, I love them. But from my perspective of my needs and wants, it doesn't suit them. And there is an amount to this that you cannot control. You know, I didn't choose to like small engine bikes. I started riding them and loved them. And then I rode lots of big bikes and kept finding myself thinking, yeah, but I still have more fun on the little ones. Even something that's like this, that's not very quick at all. Yep. Moving on to picking your bike. Okay, so let's say you're on a CVT and you're looking for a good 125 for a new rider. All of them. From the perspective of what they're capable of doing. Now, obviously, height and all those sorts of things makes a difference for you. Cost of insurance is going to make a difference for you. So if you get the most expensive 125 out there, then your insurance will cost more than if you get a cheaper one. Equally, if you go second hand, that brings the value down. That may make it even cheaper opposed to getting a new one. But it may not. It all depends. It's all very much down to you. And people say that to me. Can you give insurance quotes on the bikes? Like, how much is the insurance on that bike? I can tell you how much it's for me. And then you'll go and do it. And you're not 34 and you've not been riding for 12 years with a 10 years no claims. And, well, 8 years, I think that's the maximum. But I've got like 10 or 11 no claims. It also depends on where you keep the bike overnight and what you do for a job and how many miles you do and what area of the country you live in and all of these things. So can't give those numbers. But I can say that on paper, most 125s will suit a new rider's needs. You know, if it's simply a question of what bike will get me from A to B, they all will. I mean, look at this. This is a little electric. I'm 6'4", it's absolutely tiny, and it's still getting me out and about, doing the things I've needed to do for the past week. Also, the 125cc second-hand market is a bit of a minefield because, in all honesty, a lot of the people who own these bikes don't know how to maintain them, don't know how to look after them, don't know when there's a noise going on they really shouldn't have kept riding with, and then they did. And there's also many examples of complete lemons, you know, people trying to fob you off. I thought that was a goose. It's not a goose, sorry. Fob you off with something that's broken and trying to, you know, sell it for a quick buck before it fully breaks. It exists in all markets, but in 125s it's a bit more prevalent because, you know, oil changes. What's one of those? You know, chain adjustments? Huh? Rust prevention? What do you mean? That's not to say that all 17-year-olds are like that, and it's also not to say that most 125s are bought by 17-year-olds, because truthfully they're not these days. The riding age is getting older and older all the time. So in the 125cc market, I do think new is a fairly good idea because you get a warranty and stuff, and the bikes aren't too expensive to start out with. Depends on your budget, depends on your wants and needs, depends on your ability. If you are mechanically minded, for instance, none of this is an issue for you because you can just be like, well, I'll just fix that and I'll just fix that. One of the reasons why I got a Chinese bike is because I was happy to fix anything that went wrong with it, and in doing so, it taught me so much about motorcycle mechanics. So much. Because things went wrong with it. So there you go. I mean, yeah, okay, the bike wasn't great. It had things that went wrong with it. But it taught me enough that's probably saved me more money down the line in knowing how to do fork seals and stuff like that. When it comes to buying an A2 bike, because the bikes generally are owned by default by people over the ages of 19, 20, you know, those sorts of ages, normally had a bike to start with, know the basic maintenance things to do keep that up generally. So yeah, A2 market and above, I think you're pretty all good to look through the second-hand market, but do keep in mind that there are lemons out there. See how rough the sea is up here as we come all the way back around again. And you do need to know how to look at these things, and you can be sold a bike and then find out later down the line with absolutely no comeback that something seriously wrong has happened to it or is going wrong with it. My advice, maybe, if you want to find somewhere in the middle, is to buy from a dealership. Yes, you're going to pay a little bit more over what you would privately, but you do tend to get some comeback. You know, there's a business who's trying to keep their reputation on the line, and for that reason the bikes you see in showrooms tend to be the better ones, and the cheaper Part X's they get in that might have some issues get auctioned off. There are some sellers out there though who buy those auction job lot bikes, go through them, try and fix what they can and try and sell them all on to people, which if they're honest and good at what they do, absolutely no problem whatsoever. If they're not honest and they're not good at what they do, could be a little bit dodgy. So the last little thing is, you know, picking the bike that's right for you. I get asked the question all the time, what bike is right for me? I don't know you. I don't know where you go. I don't know what you do. I don't know your likes and dislikes. I don't know what roads you ride on. I don't know your riding ability. I don't know your mentality. I don't know all of these things. So I can't make that decision for you. I can say to you, get a bike that's comfortable. If it's uncomfortable, you won't want to ride it much and you won't enjoy it as much. You need it to be comfortable. Make sure it can do what you need it to do. You know, if you're getting a 125cc and you need to go on the dual carriageway a lot, you might find that cruiser types, for instance, or some of the much lower powered 125s won't be able to keep up for the speeds that you need, and you'll end up having them flat out just to do 65 mile an hour, opposed to something a bit more expensive that would do, you know, 70, 75, 80, probably quite happily, and is better for the engine overall. If you're looking at a bike and the answer to question 1, will it do what I need it to do, is yes, fantastic. Second question, do you want it? Yes, great. Third question, can you afford it? Maybe that should have come earlier. Yes, fantastic, I think you just found your bike. That's kind of it. It's too many things that make a bike right and wrong for different people for me to say what's right for you and wrong for you. And I know it's difficult when you're in the position that you're sat there with money in your pocket, a million bikes to choose from, and you don't know, is this going to be the right decision? Is this going to be the wrong decision? I've got this money here, I don't get second chances at this. Yeah, it's a difficult question. And I just think that anyone who says to you, I can tell you what bike is best for you, is talking out their arse. Even if I knew you as a friend, I wouldn't know what was best for you unless I sat there for an hour and a half maybe and asked you a million different questions. And even then, who can say what things are going to press those buttons for you that make it fantastic for you? So there you go, there's my philosophy on it. I hope you find that interesting. If you're going to look for a new bike, I just run through this sort of checklist. Okay, number 1, how old are you? Work out what license you can have. I have a video on what licenses you can have at what ages. Work out what you can afford. Work out, for instance, like with the A2, do I want to stay on an A2 for a while or do I want to upgrade? Because that will make a difference between picking something that is restricted or non-restricted and just capable of doing the A2. That is very relevant. If you're on a full A, is it a good idea to go from a 125 to a 1000cc? Personally, I think probably not. But it depends on your mentalities. Because a bike goes only as fast as you turn the throttle. You know for sure there are some people on a 125 now that possibly could pass their test, and if you put them on a 1000cc bike would do fine. And there are others who would not. Probably make it out of the road. So, you see my point there, it's difficult. But wants, needs, what you can afford, and don't worry about it too much. As long as you get a bike that you like the look of, that will go a long way to cover up any shortcomings it has. And you might, because you love the bike, find those shortcomings become endearing, unless they're huge, you know what I'm saying. Well, there we go, there is my view on it. Sorry that was far too long and possibly overcomplicated, but I had to just get it out like that. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button. Comment below if you've got anything to say, any thoughts and opinions on it. This is the point, it's all opinion based, nothing's really right or wrong. Okay, yeah, if a bike has a tendency to explode or set fire to itself, then yes, that probably isn't a good thing. But if it comes down to you going, well, I don't like the seat, or I find that this isn't so good, or that looks better, or I don't like the fact that they're using the name of the old bike and now, blah, blah, you know, that's your thing. But feel free to share below because it's all relevant. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I'm on my way to 100k and I would appreciate it. And if you really want to help this channel, please join my Patreon, links below. It really is those people that make it possible. And as the winter's coming up, things are going to get a little bit more tricky for YouTube. They always do, so your support through the winter will be very much appreciated. I just pulled the rear brake like it was a clutch. I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.